Welcome to WYCD Wicked. That stands for What You Can Do. Let me turn that mic down a little bit. We got a bit of a hot mic. Oh, my word. Yeah, that's WYCD Wicked. That stands for What You Can Do. And it's your old pal, Jake, coming in hot. I'm still riding high after that guest appearance on the True North Eager Beaver podcast. I love those cats, man. They're just a hoot. I hope y'all enjoyed that. I'm gonna try to get one of them to come on the stream again because I have such a fun time with them. Got a ton of suggestions from the Wicked community, but let me that we're gonna look at. But let me first start by saying hi to you. I think I saw Wireless Mike in there. Yes, sir. Good to see you. Hello. Hello, Wicked Foxy Dragon. Good to see you. Hope Zoe's doing well. Rustbox, hello. Good to see y'all. Delighted to have you here. We're doing something a little different as well today. Inspired by the fact that we already have this line of communication set up with the Wicked community, dawned on me I'm looking at this call-in show way too complicated. All we need is the ability to get audio playing over this right channel. We have an email address. Let's just use that. So pinned is in the comments is the email address, which a lot of you folks already use. Awesome. If you want to be on the call-in portion of the show today, which we're going to hopefully end it with, write me an email at whatyoucando@wycdnetwork.com with your phone number in it. And I will call that phone number and use the speakerphone function to have a call-in show. Look at that. Hopefully it works. Hopefully it isn't a hot mess. I did test it with my buddy, and it worked okay on a test stream, so we're going to take a whack at it live on the show today. And if it's just a hot mess, then we'll be part of Wicked history with the Hot Mess Show. I'm excited for it. Either way, we're going to have fun. Well, tell you what, gang. Thank you to Franny P for this suggestion. We're going to start it off with Tom Hartman, and I am going to do an intro for that. Kicking off the show today, we have a segment from Tom Hartman, who's talking about somebody who's made an already infamous appearance on this show, Dick Durbin. He's the Senate Majority Whip, and he's bad at his job. Guy's supposed to be a Democrat. He sure doesn't look like it. Let's let Brother Tom here tell you about what's going on when it comes to confirming judicial appointments.
Senator Dick Durbin stopped the blue slip scam blocking Democratic judges. And here's the story, and there's a backstory here that literally goes back to George Washington. Right now, you've got a number of Democratic nominees for judgeships that are being blocked in the Senate by Republican senators.
Don't worry. We're going to get to what this has to do with Dick Durbin. The background here is important because this kind of thing happens all the time. I just want to stress, when you're learning about this, remember the reason that Donald Trump was not indicted in office is similar reasoning. An old tradition was made at some point because it was convenient politically at that time. No law was put on the book, and people just keep following it, particularly Democrats. But the problem is Republicans have no respect, goose egg respect, for behaving like that. So when you have one party that follows tradition because, it's the right thing to do, it's the proper thing to do, it would be rude otherwise, it would make waves otherwise, And you've got another party which says unless it's specifically a law, and even then, unless we're going to be charged, they'll do anything. When you have that set up, what you have is a country which is fucked. So, listen to this background. Listen to how ancient and irrelevant this way of conducting the government is. And then ask yourself if you want the Democrats hamstringing themselves like this any longer. Just like with the Office of Legal Counsel's opinion that you can't indict a sitting president. The people never got a chance to say whether they like that or not. And I'll tell you, I surely don't like that, and I surely don't like this. Here's Tom Hart.
For example, Cindy Hyde-Smith is blocking a judicial nominee by the name of Scott Collum. Last year, Republican Senator Ron Johnson blue slip vetoed Judge William Pocan, who is the brother of our friend Mark Pocan.
Probably for great reasons, though. Probably for legitimate reasons. Tell us, Tom.
They are both gay, and apparently Ron Johnson blue slipped him, vetoed him because he's gay. Roger Marshall and Jerry Moran are bragging that they're going to veto Biden's nomination of Jabari Womble for federal district judge in Kansas because presumably he's black. Now, I called all 5 of Dick Durbin's offices yesterday. Dick Durbin is the senator who is in charge of the Senate Judiciary Committee, and basically, you know, he has the choice. If Cindy Hyde-Smith or Roger Marshall or Jerry Moran want to send back a blue slip that says I don't support this candidate, Dick Durbin has a choice. He can take that blue slip seriously and veto that candidate and not send their nomination to the floor of the Senate. Or he can say, okay, cool, you don't like this person, I'll append a note to our recommending this to the entire Senate for a vote.
I'm going to leave that mildly annoyed, eyes closed face up for a second because it's accurate for how I feel about this. But I feel bad doing it to Hartman. There we go. That's even better. He looks aghast. So, in other words, just to recap what he just said, in other words, Dick Durbin, a Democrat, can choose to take racist, I'm going to say the word, cunt Republicans seriously. Yes, Republicans, you have elected a bunch of see you next Tuesdays. Welcome to Getting Real Talk. He can choose to take them seriously, or he can choose to simply write down their nonsense objections and then see the judicial appointment. He has that ability, but because he's an old school Democrat, got into office in 97, he's an old school Democrat, he thinks, well, it's the proper thing to do. Well, I wouldn't want to embarrass my colleagues on the right. They're doing a racism right now. I don't want to shine a light on that. That might embarrass the political class. Dick Durbin, you're a lousy politician. You have no sense of right and wrong. You shouldn't be in the position you are, but God help you, you are in that position. You're the head of that committee, which means now the left is coming for you hard, buddy. You better listen to the flood of messages that I assume are going to be coming from the wicked community after this. Brother Tom, take it home.
To our recommending this to the entire Senate for a vote. He's choosing to allow Republicans to veto Democratic nominees.
Choosing.
Now, what is this whole blue slip thing? Where did this start? Where did this come from? The backstory here starts in 1789. On August 3rd, 1789, President George Washington sent a list of people who, these were officer commissions. Those are also being held up in the Senate right now. They require senatorial approval for a different reason and in a different way. But in any case, George Washington sent a list of naval officers to the Senate. And, for the home state senators, each state had 2 senators, still does, for the home state senators to say yes or no to these people. Now, the reason they did this was because if you're George Washington living in Washington, D.C. or Mount Vernon, Virginia, or you're the senator from Massachusetts, or you're the senator from Connecticut, you have no way of knowing in 1789 who this guy is, Benjamin Fishburne of Georgia, who the president has nominated for, a military promotion or for a judgeship. You just have no way of knowing. There was no internet, there's no Wikipedia, there's no mass media. They hadn't even invented the telegraph at that point. There were no national newspapers. So it made perfect sense that if you're the president or if you're other senators, that when a nominee is brought forward from, a state, that you would go to the two senators from that state and say, what do you think of this guy? Is he any good? Or is he, a nut job? Is he a drunk? Is he a felon? Is he just a general ass?
Or is he somebody not like your old pal Jake? But look, the point is, these are rules from before the telephone. These are rules from before the advent of the telephone. That is how long it's been since anybody paid attention to how the government works seriously, for God's sake.
Should we be considering him or not? And if one of the home state senators says no, then, don't advance that, out of an abundance of caution, don't advance that nomination. And in fact, what happened was Senator James Gunn of Georgia objected to Benjamin Fishburne being nominated by George Washington for this military promotion. Now, the reason he objected was because Fishburne had supported Senator Gunn's opponent, Major General Nathaniel Greene, in a duel that Gunn had challenged Greene to. Gunn walked around for a whole year with a pistol in his belt because he kept hoping that he would run into Greene so he could shoot him. And Fishburne had
just for the record, I think America has been written by comedians, right? You don't get James Gunn objecting to a nomination based on an incident around a gun unless you're a particularly lazy writer. I think we can agree that whichever deity made America had a sense of humor.
Publicly, basically ridiculed Gunn for this attempted duel. So Gunn vetoed Fishburne. Now, George Washington was seriously pissed off about this. He walked over to the Senate chamber and confronted Gunn and said, "Why are you doing this? Why are you vetoing my nominee?" And Gunn said, under the consent and advice clause, the advice and consent clause of the Constitution, it's my obligation to advise and consent or withhold my consent. I'm withholding my consent and I'm giving you advice. Don't give this guy a military commission. And Washington said, why? And Senator Gunn said, I don't have to tell you. The advice and consent clause does not require me to give you a reason. Now, because you're the president and because I respect you, I will tell you my reason. My reason is I don't like this guy. But I don't have an obligation.
For just a moment, consider doing this radical thing, which is don't worship the founding fathers. Don't worship the people of that generation who set up the country and pretend like all this happened last week. Are you okay with that reasoning? I don't have to tell you. La 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 la, no reason. I mean, I'll tell you this time so that we don't put it on the books or anything, but yeah, I don't have to tell you. Just can't list your reason. You're supposed to be representing the people. You're not explaining yourself to George Washington. You're explaining yourself to the people who put you in office. That's the point. That's the point of being open about this stuff. He was a political rival. That's why. That's why he was objecting. Let's get to the modern day.
Obligation to tell you. And that incident in August of 1789, established the precedent that today we refer to as blue slips. And from 1789 up until around 1917, a paper would be distributed from the president about his nominees, and home state senators could object. And generally speaking, the Senate Judiciary Committee respected those objections and didn't let those nominees out, didn't let them go to the floor of the Senate for a vote. Now, this is not a law. It's not even in the Constitution. The Constitution does not mention anything about this. This is a tradition. It's not even a Senate rule. It's a tradition. There's nothing binding to this. In 1917, 105 years ago, Congress tweaked it a little bit, the chairman of the Judiciary Committee. They started passing out that letter saying, what do you think about this guy? Printed on a blue piece of paper. And if it was returned with a no, now starting in 1917, see, this was when radio had become a thing. There were now two national radio networks, the Red Network and the Blue Network, which ultimately became CBS and NBC. And there were nationwide newspapers by 1917. So people knew who people were. And so in 1917, they stopped vetoing people, even when they were objected to by the home state senators, and they simply noted when they passed that nomination along.
We got to pause for just a moment. Congratulations to Patrick Thibodeau. You are now in the Friends of Doris. I left a message for the Friends of Doris, little secretive club there, very recently. I think you might be able to see it now, and it could affect this show. Congratulations. Thank you for joining, sir.
The floor of the Senate simply noted, hey, one of the home state senators says don't vote for this guy. You know, which would hurt, but it wasn't a veto. And that stood from 1917, where they did it on blue pieces of paper and they started referring to it as blue slips. That stood until 1955, when Senator James Eastland, the notorious white supremacist, became chair of the Judiciary Committee. Now, 2 years earlier, in 1954, the Supreme Court had ordered public schools to be desegregated, to be integrated racially. And Eastland wanted to make sure that no federal judge would be appointed to the bench, to the federal bench, who would support the Supreme Court's decision in that regard. And so he went back to saying if a home state senator suspects that one of these judicial nominees might support the Supreme Court's integration order, we will respect that as a veto in the committee. So from 1956 until 1979, while James Eastland was head of the committee, if somebody blue slipped a nominee, if they said no on a blue slip to the nominee, that nominee was toast. It never got out of committee. Now in 1979, Ted Kennedy came along. He replaced Eastland, and he said, no, we're going to go back to the way it was before 1955. We'll simply tell people somebody objected, but it won't kill the nomination. In 2001, though, Orrin Hatch became the chair, and he went back to James Eastland's rule. And Pat Leahy, when he became the chair in 2003, he followed Eastland's rule, which provoked a 2014 outraged op-ed.
Real quick, before he said that guy was a notorious racist, etc., etc., I knew that's who it would be. Here's why.
You ain't got to worry about Gloria.
That's what it felt like.
Be safe up in here. I've been keeping the girls up on their kung fu like you told me to. Now they find her up in here, we will fricassees they hunky asses. Chicago!
Dynamite, are you sure about this? Maybe we should just call the police.
No, Mama. You could bet your sweet ass and half a titty whoever put that hit out on you already got the cops in their back pocket. You be cool, Mama.
This is the feeling I got. A little wind up here, but this is the feeling I got when he mentioned that that this guy was a problem.
Be here, keep you tight and out of sight. I'ma shake the tree from the roots and rake up the fruits, rip it up out the ground, find out what's going down. Don't worry about tomorrow, Mama, because tonight...
Dynamite's gonna make everything all right.
Euphoria, shut the fuck up. I know that was you. I ain't even got to look. I should send your ass back to Crenshaw Pete with his hot-ass coat hangers, bitch. Would you like that?
God damn it, right-wingers. I didn't even have to look. I knew that was you. Thank you for humoring me. Back to Tom Hartman. Let's let him finish this up.
In the New York Times, an official editorial in the New York Times, calling out Leahy for doing this. Now, then in 2019, Lindsey Graham becomes chairman, and he says, we're going to ignore blue slips from Democrats. And that's how they push through a lot of these crazy Republicans that are on the bench right now. They just ignored the Democrats' blue slips.
Just ignoring them.
Well, now the head of the Judiciary Committee is Dick Durbin, the senator from Illinois. And he's gone back to doing what James Eastland was doing, which is allowing Republicans to veto Democratic nominees simply because they feel like it. So I'm encouraging people to reach out to Dick Durbin, particularly if you live in Illinois.
Boom.
I was not able to reach any of his offices yesterday. Nobody answered the phone at any of them. But, you know, if you live in the state, maybe they'll answer your phone. Maybe they'll recognize your phone number. Or you can email them. There's other ways to contact the senator. You can tweet him. Let him know what you think about this.
Because that's what you can do. What did I say going into that? What did I say? When you have one party holding themselves to a set of rules that they don't have to, and you have another party holding themselves to no rules at all, the party that's not adhering to any rules, they're going to get more stuff done for their side. And if they don't care about rules, well, gosh, their side probably ain't a great group to have running everything. Who's Dick Durbin doing this for? Does he think, before this segment, did you have any idea that's how it worked? I didn't. I do this for a living. I didn't know that. I didn't know that the blue slips were so ignored by right-wingers and so adhered to by left-wingers. Look, would I rather live in a country where both sides are respecting each other and are willing to say, oh, no, after you. Oh, no, after you. Yes, I would prefer to live in that country. We don't. The Democrats didn't decide we don't live in that country. Republicans did. And now, you want to know why I say that you should vote as far left as you can in the primaries. This is why, because now we have folks like Dick Durbin, who have been around since Jesus was born, and are just unbelievably pathetic in the roles that they're supposed to be filling. They're pathetic. They have no backbone. They have no sense of reality. And they have grown up. They've cut their teeth. They entered politics. They've had whole careers, and they are now at the end of their careers with the old Democratic strategy, which is to get destroyed by Republicans, to be weak and ineffectual, to pay lip service only to left-wing ideas while rolling over and then campaigning off the tisk-tisking that they do. That's Dick Durbin. Guess what? He shouldn't be comfortable. We don't get to be comfortable living in this country under Dick Durbin-style leadership. He shouldn't be comfortable going into his office. When his interns read him the emails from the day, when they show him that board with the check marks on it, who called in about what, he should know that he is the one who is getting blamed for the wild Republican behavior because he's allowing it to happen. We expect shitty children. Yeah, it's a cursing episode. What can I say? I apologize. We expect terrible children to act like terrible children, and we don't think you should put terrible children in charge of anything. But about 20, 30% of the nation keeps putting terrible children in charge of things. And now it's very important that the adults in the room have a damn backbone. So insist that Dick Durbin open up a closet, root through the skeletons, and find a backbone. because we are not going to put up with this anymore. His contact information's in the description. Use it. Make him uncomfortable, because that's what he deserves, and we cannot allow judicial nominees to be held up like this anymore. Tell him. And let's see what the wicked community has to say about this. What do you say? May says, this is a huge issue. No, show the American people who Republicans really are. These kind of politicians need to be voted out of office. They are destroying our democracy and country. Enough. I wholeheartedly agree. Hell yes. Rust Blocks. See, I always pop an L in there. I'm sorry. Rustbox says, I remember the indictment stream. LOL. Yeah, we've had some wild ones. FSU says, thanks for saying don't worship the founding fathers. Yeah, that the way they are treated creeps me right out. Patrick's Time says, did anyone watch Ukraine on Fire? Ooh, I didn't, but I should. I apologize. Zick says, George Carlin on abortion. Too long for Jake's spreadsheet, but you folks should enjoy. Oh, and then it deleted the thing. All right, I will look for the George Carlin on abortion issue. Bit. Franny P. My friend, we got a new Wicked Citizen of the Day, and that is it's the Franny P stream. Not only are we doing multiple clips that you suggested, but you wrote Durbin already. Ha-cha! That's what I'm talking about. Patrick's Time says, Dick Durbin got into politics in 1982. When did Biden get into politics? Biden got into politics in, let's see if I remember this correctly, 1586, when an old witch summoned the most stereotypical Democrat that could possibly exist. And of course that was Biden, and then he yada yada yada. I don't know when he got it. He's literally been in for I think more than 50 years though. So I'm not a fan of Biden, although I will say it time and time again. I'm a big fan of Dark Brandon, which when there's a full moon and Biden looks directly at it and a Republican's just said something dumb, occasionally we'll get an appearance of Dark Brandon, who is a mighty slayer of Republican nonsense. I'll tell you what. I got a little more, I want to group the fiery stuff together because I'd like to end this on a positive note, which means we're going to continue it on a very, very negative note. Buckle up, gang. But before we get into that segment, I do want to remind you, we're going to be taking calls, and we're going to be doing a low-tech method of it. Simply write the email, which is pinned above. I hope it's pinned above. It's WYCD. It's what you can do at WYCDnetwork.com. If you write that email, send me your phone number in the email, and I will give you a call, which is essentially how we're doing call screening when you got just one fella here. And we'll have a conversation on stream. Yes, we are doing call-ins now, so write that email with the phone number. In the subject line, make it easy for me to see what you're talking about. Just write call in, and I will jump right to that email. Give it if you want to talk. If you want to be live on the stream, by all means, let's do it. Now let's get into the most depressing story of the week so far. And I'll spoil it and tell you, don't worry, everybody's alive. But doesn't speak well for us. Hold up, I'm going to do an intro. Well, when you have a nation that is just saturated with guns and racism, and when you have a class of citizens in this country, which you can visually identify, that have been made by our garbage culture, it is inevitable that you're going to get stories like this. And we're gonna watch this because we should all feel bad that this happened, and we should all take steps to make sure it doesn't happen again, because a 16-year-old boy was shot for no damn reason in the United States of America. Let's talk about it.
A Missouri family is searching for answers after their 16-year-old son was shot in the head after accidentally ringing the doorbell of the wrong house. Now, according to Kansas City Police, Ralph Yarl, who's black, was asked by his parents to pick up his siblings at 115th Terrace, but accidentally approached a home on 115th Street instead. Now, after ringing the doorbell, Yarl was immediately shot by a white homeowner in the head. After watching him fall to the ground, the homeowner shot Yarl again. The wounded 16-year-old had to ask for help at 3 different homes before.
Let's just really drink this in for a moment. We're not even getting a minute into the story, and I don't want you to miss any inch of that. A kid knocks on a door. He rings a doorbell. In other words, the polite, accepted way to contact the people inside a home. In exchange for that, he gets shot in the head. Then, the person, now that the kid's already been shot in the head, wants to make absolutely sure they've killed him. Shoots him again. Then, a 16-year-old who was shot twice, once in the goddamn head. That kid has to go to 3 more homes? Missouri, you should be ashamed. You should be ashamed. If you live in Missouri, this ought to weigh on you heavy. And your hands will not be clean until you have taken steps to change this. Fuck it. It's true for all of us. We got this kid's blood on our hands. We have this kid's suffering on our souls because a lot of us live in a country where this is allowed, and all of us live in a world where this is allowed. No more. We're going to civilize this goddamn place. Let's hear the rest of this ugliness.
Finally receiving assistance, he is currently in serious but stable condition.
The homeowner who police...
Just one more thing before we move on. Serious but stable is not a good thing. That just means serious, but it hasn't changed. In fact, you probably don't want to be stable when you're serious. You want to be on an upward track. But I digress. Let's let this keep going.
Have not named, was taken into custody and placed on a 24-hour hold and then released by officials. No arrest has been made.
Garbage.
Now, people have been objecting to this person's release. Apparently, that is pretty par for the course until charges are formally, felony charges are formally filed. And there have been a number of protests around this. Principally because there is this question of whether stand your law ground is implicated here again. Missouri law does not require a person to first retreat before using deadly force if they feel their life is in danger. And in cases like this kind of subjective belief that if you're in your home and someone comes up who is threatening, you have the ability to use deadly force to defend your home. And the argument that many folks have been making is that because of the public perception that Black men are dangerous inherently, you get situations where I'm sure there's going to be an argument that seeing this 16-year-old on this front porch ringing the doorbell was justification in a lot of people's minds for a homeowner to swing first and ask questions later.
Yeah, I mean,
there is no reasonable argument for this behavior. None, goose egg. If somebody is so cowardly And even she was talking about the perception that this homeowner might have had about this kid. If you're such a coward that the mere appearance of a 16-year-old boy makes you shoot a gun, you cannot be allowed to have a gun. You're literally too cowardly to be armed. Now, it turns out that's true of a lot of police in the United States as well. But we need coward laws for this in particular, especially in stand-your-ground states. If you demonstrate that you are a coward, like this person, first of all, they should have known they were a coward going in. So I think criminal charges need to be filed. Even if the court case fails, even if a jury ends up deciding, no, we're also scum, even if a judge decides, no, this type of behavior is okay, even if they dishonor themselves, don't let the other parts of the criminal justice system dishonor themselves by failing to bring charges. And we should legislate coward laws. As in, you can be so cowardly that you cannot be trusted with a firearm. That's who this homeowner is. The sight of a teenage kid politely trying to get their attention causes them to panic and shoot the kid and then try to make sure they killed him. Can't be trusted with a firearm.
Obviously, that should not be justification. I wonder if
It isn't.
The ringing the doorbell is a kind of counter indicator, because what the mailman, the package person, the pizza guy, people ringing the doorbell is in fact about as non-intimidating or threatening thing you can do. You're like announcing your presence,
right?
Ostensibly having a legitimate. Anyone can. People can do that. You can ring someone's
right.
like that is within the scope. That's not considered a violation of someone's property rights.
Yeah.
Just generally. So if we're not to the point, obviously, where we're hearing his argument for why he did this or presenting any kind of legal defense. We're not even to the point where he's been charged. Although I agree, based on what we know about this so far, obviously we need to gather more information. It sounds like there will be a charge forthcoming. There should be a charge forthcoming. Yeah.
You are goddamn right there should be a charge forthcoming. In preparation that there may not be, in preparation that we are in a shameful country, I have put the link to the Black Lives Matter organization in the description. Just want to tell you now, because we're going to watch this whole damn thing, because that's literally the least we could do is know about this. I'm going to tell you now so you can sign up. So you see, let's say you're a white person. You see the other white faces there? Those are called allies. Those are called allies. Folks, this is like a less exciting version of the 1940s. It's the allies versus the scum. The wretches that have no business outside of a prison cell. Be an ally.
Ringing the doorbell should be commonly understood as not, he wasn't, was he like in the...
We're gonna hang here. Look at this damn kid. How much more of a teenage sweetheart do you need to be? Let me be clear. This kid could have been in a gang. He could have been loaded up with what's a stereotypical thing? Crack cocaine in his pockets, just like Hillary Clinton was a skirt of in the 90s. He could have been those things, and I would be demanding the same treatment of this homeowner, because it can't be stressed enough. What he did was walk up to the home and try to get the homeowner's attention. That's all. And the coward shot him.
Backside or corner of the house, peeking in the windows, that would be different. I'm still not saying he should be. I'm saying if you're trying to present a stand your ground, again, ringing the doorbell doesn't say to me, oh, this was a provocation or a threat, because it's a very standard issue thing for anyone to do when they come up to even a stranger's house.
Tough. Of course, it is also the case that someone can impersonate a delivery person who they can say they're reading the water pressure on your house and come in and, like, you can ring a doorbell and still be doing a crime. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
But the question is, where are we legally going to put the onus? Are we going to put the onus on, the homeowner? Are we going to put the, and give them, or are we going to put the onus on the person approaching a house to say, if you don't want to get shot, you basically have to proceed with extreme caution, or else you're liable for, what kind of society do we want to create? And that's what's happening with these kinds of stand your ground laws. And I think choices are being made sometimes about, some people will readily say, yes, the homeowner should have the presumption, the onus should be on the person approaching the house. Your home is your homestead, it's your castle. Shoot first, ask question later is exactly the kind of world that we want to live in. I do think that sometimes that presumption is rooted in a belief that no one is ever going to think that someone like you is causing harm.
No. Let me just be absolutely clear. Your home is not a goddamn military base. You don't have the right to gun down strangers because they dared put a toe on your property. You don't have that right. We'll decide whether or not it's legal in America through this case and others like it. I'm telling you, as a human being, you don't have that right. There are more important things, believe it or not, than what the law says. And we need to start accounting for them as a goddamn species. In other words, we need to start acting like adults. We need to hold ourselves to a higher standard than the law absolutely requires. Now, to be clear, our laws should strive to match that standard, but this is called, believe it or not, politeness. You hold the door for somebody that's behind you when you're walking through the door to be polite. There's no law that says you have to, you just do it. You don't shoot some kid for no damn reason, because it's the decent way to behave. What you don't do is see a black kid walk up to your porch and think, I'm going to roll the dice. I think I can get away with it. Yeah, I could probably murder this kid and get away with it. I bet I can. Gosh, I bet this is a stand your ground. I can get away with this. I want to kill a black guy so much. Burn in hell to this Missouri resident.
People who have never been in the position where there's been people have reacted negatively to their existence because of what they look like. And, that's difficult for people to internalize. But in a case like this, where not only did he shoot this 16-year-old, but once he was shot, he shot him again. And then the shooter wasn't even the person who got medical assistance. The kid had to ask a number of, I don't even know what kind of state he possibly could have been in, trying to get someone to help him in this environment.
Missouri,
I don't know.
I hope everyone in Missouri right now is hanging their head in shame. They should be.
Hope it's not the case that the
Fuck it, this country, everyone in the United States at a minimum should be embarrassed that this happened, should be mortified that this happened.
The laws that we're promulgating to keep us safe aren't fracturing our sense of community such that not only are we shooting kids who ring the wrong doorbell, but we're not rushing to get them help and medical assistance when they obviously need it.
Yeah, look, we need to learn much more if there is a possible racial motivation here. I'm seeing there's calls among the protesters for this to be a hate crime charge. Obviously, we need to know more about the views of the state, or why the person who shot the kid believed he should do that, or that was the right thing to do. I don't think the stand your ground law should be applied here because of the ringing of the doorbell. And I take your point. Yes, we don't want to live in a society where you can't knock on a neighbor's door because you are so fear that they might just shoot you. I do think people should have the right to defend themselves and their property from crime when there's genuine evidence a crime is being committed. I don't think
And I think that if a law is used more for, I feel the way she looks in that freeze frame. If a law is used more for getting around other laws than it is for whatever it's supposed to defend, then it is a poorly written law and it's got to go. The stand your ground laws are trash. Cowards use them to justify murder. They're trash laws. And we should be ashamed that we have ever defended them as a country.
You're obligated to just stand back and watch it happen, but there was nothing so far that we know, and of course we have to wait for more information. We could learn different information, but based on what has been reported so far, there is no reason for any reasonable person to think that you just shoot somebody when they ring your doorbell.
Yeah, I mean, these stand the ground.
I went too hard on the honky. I withdraw my F this guy. I suspect I despise him, but it's his job to offer a counter opinion, I guess. So I am withdrawing that F that guy, reluctantly withdrawing it.
Gun laws have also been really interesting because there is, in the case of the Texas Black Lives Matter protester that was shot by someone, they were both gun carriers, and now there's all of this rigmarole about whether Greg Abbott is going to pardon the guy who was convicted. A jury of his peers convicted him in Texas of murdering this Black Lives Matter protester. There had been social media comments along the lines of that he wanted to kill someone. There was a lot of motive, I think, that probably affected the outcome in that case.
Let me be clear. Social media comments from that guy and from his group of scumbag friends. Look, in the 50s, most of the racists weren't saying, "We're racist." In the 60s, most of the racists, they weren't saying, "We're racist, and this is why we want to do something." Yeah, there were folks that talked like that, sure. But the justification for the racist laws that were passed were not, on their face, supposed to be read as, "We're racist." We are in that era again. We went back to that era. In other words, congratulations, MAGA. You brought back all the worst parts of American history, and you're going to most likely burn in the hottest spots of hell for that, because you knew what you were doing. If you supported this trash, you're trash. I don't even believe hell exists, but I fully believe, I'm such an optimist, I believe it will be created just for you scum. But to be absolutely clear, if the rest of us that consider ourselves sane, decent humans wait until 2024 to have a say about this, we are part of the problem. We are responsible for a couple of grains of lead that passed through the head of that 16-year-old child. You, me, all of us. Get ready to march. We need to cut this out real quick and then deal with why it was allowed to happen in the first place.
And now the governor is saying, well, no, I want to pardon this person in a kind of moment that feels very reminiscent of the Kyle Rittenhouse situation. And people are very divided along political lines about whether or not it is you have the right.
They want you dead. Don't forget
if someone has a gun, to shoot them because of this perception of risk and vulnerability. But that really does butt up against this question of, and both of the people in that case were white, but butts up into this question of, okay, we have Second Amendment rights and protections for people, but for whom exactly? Is this really about defending one's right to have a gun? Does that also accrue to the Black Lives Matter protester who was legally armed and carrying, or only to the kind of vigilante who said it was out for blood and went ahead and went out and ended up murdering this human being? It's notable that California has such strict gun laws in part because Ronald Reagan passed them after Black Panthers were protesting armed at the State House. And there's been this long legacy of, okay, we like these rights, but for whom? And who are they designed to protect? And race has been so bound up in that question throughout the history of American gun laws.
Actually, I can answer that one for you. It's to protect cowardly white folks. If someone isn't enough of a man or enough of a woman to have a fist fight, what they'll do is resort to carrying around a gun. Now, don't get me wrong, there's plenty of people that do genuinely carry them around for safety reasons, but for the most part, most of the punks I see open carrying or toting around an assault rifle, it's because they're too cowardly to actually deal with things on an even basis. And you know that's the case because if anybody else brings a gun, they fall into a cold sweat. If anybody opposing them also has a gun, they tend to shoot the initial cowardly white person. Because that culture is a cowardly culture. The MAGA culture is a bunch of terrified, pathetic snowflakes. They are un-American. They are an embarrassment to me. I cannot stress enough how little respect I have for anyone who would shoot a 16-year-old or anyone that would continue to support a culture from this moment on, fellas, that would allow for the shooting of a 16-year-old. Just so we are crystal clear.
That it is very difficult for some people to accept that people who really are advocating for gun freedoms really mean it.
Right. I take that criticism, of course. The Second Amendment is not just for white people, it's for black people. It's race non-specific. Everyone should be able to celebrate it. I would probably agree with you that there's been an unnecessary reticence to sometimes to defend, by certain people to defend black gun owners against the police. There was that case, I can't remember, maybe you can remember the name of the individual who was shot and killed. He was carrying a gun. He was in his car, and the police shot him in the car.
That was Philando Castile, wasn't it?
Yes, Philando Castile. And that was an appalling, it was a crime, but a violation of his Second Amendment rights. He had every right to carry a gun.
Yeah. That case was a whole cluster of things. Yeah. It was like a weird poverty case. He was pulled over and over again for kind of not replacing his lights and things that were wrong with his car. That was part of why he had the interaction with the police in the first instance. He was a cafeteria worker, beloved cafeteria worker at an elementary or high school, I forget which now. He did everything right when the police approached his car, and it didn't matter. There was a child in the back seat who witnessed his shooting and murder.
There was Tamir Rice, who was a kid, so he shouldn't have been carrying a gun. But he wasn't carrying a gun. He had a toy gun. He was shot on arrival within seconds by an incompetent police officer who had been dismissed from previous police forces. This one I remember because I reported on it a lot, for incompetence with firearms. And then he was rehired by this different police force that they shot him immediately
within seconds.
So these rights need to be.
If you vote MAGA, this is what you support, just to be crystal clear. If you vote MAGA, you want to know why it's a little uncomfortable to be a white person? Sometimes you feel that guilt. You're in a room full of black folks, you feel that guilt, right? That white guilt. We effed you over and we know it. This is why. You should feel that guilt. You earned that guilt. You chose to behave like a fucking savage. That's why. White people had all the power for hundreds of years in the United States. All the power. What did we do with it? Treated other people badly. We showed who we are. At least we showed who we were. Is that who you want to be tomorrow? You want to pass that guilt on to your kids? Do you really want this society to keep going like this? Is it a coincidence that this kind of shit always seems to happen to black people? Take personal responsibility, you fucking coward. Take personal responsibility. I'm going to cool it with the cursing. I apologize. But take personal responsibility. Even if you don't feel like it's fair. Oh, but I didn't pull that trigger. Oh, but I wouldn't. Blah, blah, blah. Don't care. Don't care. Take the responsibility. If you really think that these are just people that are using these laws wrong, and you would never, and decent folks would never, then insist that a court of law treat them like that. I don't want to hear person one come to the defense of this scum. Better not. Better not on this.
For everyone, in the Kyle Rittenhouse case, we did talk about that a lot on Rising, but it was before you started hosting. I mean, I didn't feel strongly going into it, but after watching a lot of the video footage and hearing what one of the surviving people who he had shot said at the trial, that it did seem that he was, or his belief that he was defending himself, and that in each of the 3 cases where he had fired, he did reasonably fear for his life because someone was, engaging in violence against him, including one of those people testified to that. It seemed to me that that acquittal was the right cause of action there.
Garbage. No, it wasn't. He showed up with a gun looking for trouble. He was getting a traditional, good old-fashioned, perfectly acceptable, perfectly reasonable in the circumstances, ass-whipping, which he had coming.
So
yeah, the question remains. I think that people would accept that outcome a lot more if they imagined a world in which a black Kyle Rittenhouse ran into a crowd protesting, let's say Tea Partiers or Trump supporters.
Yeah, imagine that.
Ended up shooting multiple people, killing multiple people, and being acquitted. Mm-hmm. I mean, I know that sometimes those thought experiments are a little cute. And I don't want to overly go down that hypothetical road because it's just a hypothetical.
Yeah, and also he wouldn't. I mean, possibly depending on what city we're talking about, he wouldn't even be prosecuted. There's tons of gun crimes not being prosecuted.
Someone choosing a black teenager.
I guess if it was politically salient enough, but
choosing to enter a crowd of hostile white conservatives. Mm-hmm. The hostile white conservatives start to grab at his gun, etc., and he shoots and kills multiple of them. It's difficult, whatever you think about what the outcome should be, it's difficult to imagine with certain little facts like that changed the same outcomes being consistent across. And I think that's what people have the biggest issue with in the cases like Kyle Rittenhouse. I don't know. It's tough. We'll continue to follow what happens with this story. We'll have more Rising for you after this.
All right. I already feel bad about cursing. Can't curse like that. You have a serious point to make, and I do have a serious point to make. So I apologize for all that foul-mouthed nonsense. Serious point is this. We have a responsibility, all of us. In the United States of America, especially, because this is where this problem happened. But around the world, regardless of your race, we have a responsibility. This society, now that we're interconnected, now that someone from Beijing can hop on here and see what's going on, Someone from England can. Someone from Norway can. Someone from Canada can. All of us have some responsibility. We have to be vocal about the fact that we don't accept this behavior. Let me tell you where the most responsibility lies. On the right wing. As a matter of fact, the American right wing. If that's you, you better get out there and make it clear that this is not what you're okay with. Or make it clear that you're the motherfucker that try that again. Or make it clear that you're the kind of person that I think belongs in a prison cell. Because you support the murder of kids. Teenager knocks on a door, gets shot in the head. Homeowner comes out, shoots him again. Kid crawls away, has to go through multiple houses before anyone deigns to help him. If you support that in any way, you should be ashamed. If you don't support that, use the link in the description. Sign up for the Black Lives Matter mailing list. They're going to lead the charge, I'm sure. When they march, march with them. Be an ally. Choose to be one of the decent people who's part of the solution. It is shameful that this problem even exists. But even if you don't feel that you caused the problem, you need to take the responsibility to be part of the solution immediately, because we cannot put up with this being in our country or our planet anymore. Ooh, got hot under the collar. I might have to re-record that sans the cursing just so we can do a serious segment that I put up later. Let's see what we got. Patrick's Time says cursing is a sign of a low IQ. Correct. Quite correct. I should not have cursed. I'm probably going to have to do the work to re-record that. Wireless Mike says, I'm done feeding the trolls. F these guys. I'm just going to watch Jake and ignore these fools. Yeah, I think that's a good plan. Look, when we get somebody from the MAGA side of things in this chat, that is, believe it or not, a good thing. That's somebody who is, for whatever reason, choosing to look at a problem from somebody else's perspective. Even if they're saying things that infuriate you, make it like water off a duck's back. We're swimming in it. We're not sinking in it. We're not getting soaked. We're going to use it, and we're going to navigate. They're telling you what their objections are. They're telling you what the objections of people who don't have the guts to watch channels that disagree with them and toss curses at them are thinking. That's valuable information. Let me tell you something. We have our resident other side of the aisler in the chat right now. Good. Most of the wicked community is going to disagree with this person, but all of us can learn. Let's do that. And I don't believe, I'm going so hard on these folks, in this segment in particular, because I don't believe this is what they truly stand for. I don't believe they want an America that functions like this. Shame is going to be an important part of our coming growth spurt as a country. We're going to grow the hell up because myself and the wicked community won't let us keep acting like evil little children. We are going to grow up. And part of that is going to be doling out shame and, most importantly, accepting it on ourselves. I'm not immune. Accepting it when it's due. You want some shame? I just wasted that whole segment, that important segment, because I couldn't keep my temper down. Cursed a bunch. What was the effect of that cursing? Let's look at this for a second. What was the effect of that cursing? The video, which is important, will go to less viewers because the YouTube algorithm will knock it down. Because I couldn't keep my temper under control. Can't act like that. Accept the shame. Then act accordingly. What am I going to do about that? I'm going, I don't know, to go attempt to knock out 20 push-ups, get through about 3 before I get too tired, and then when I'm all tuckered out, and I've already done one take of this, and I already know everything I'm going to see, calm down, film the damn thing again, and upload it later. Do the same thing on a national level. We do all have a responsibility for making this place better. The work needs to get done. It won't necessarily be fairly doled out. The people who care the most about fixing this country will already have done the least to break it. They have probably been fighting the brakes the whole way. Even so, we need the whole team working as hard as they can. Doesn't mean burn yourself out. No, it does not mean burning yourself out. But it does mean calmly, again, I've just done a bad example of that, calmly going about doing the business. We can do it. We will do it. According to polls, what we're doing is working. The country is becoming more sane, but we have let it get away with insanity for so long that we're going to keep seeing ugly stuff like this until we have more victories under our belt. It is not all depressing news, though, and I think it's just about time that we look at some stuff that's a little bit more inspiring. Let's get that energy back up, baby. Because Brother Bernie was just on MSNBC. And here is a sign that things are going right. Because I would have never seen such an interview before. Hold up and take another whack at this. We're going to record this one. So Brother Bernie was just on MSNBC, and he did a smashing appearance. If you're a right-winger watching, hey, great news for you. Biden's former press secretary kind of got danced all over by Brother Bernie. Got corrected a whole lot. You'll enjoy that. And in general, if you're sick of lefties not making a very good account of themselves when they're on corporate media, this will be a special treat because Bernie, I feel, knocked it out of the park. Here he is.
I can think of few people better to discuss all of this with than Senator Bernie Sanders, who joins me now. He's the author of the new book, It's Okay to Be Angry About Capitalism. I don't know how you found the time to write a book amidst everything going on that touches on so many issues impacting all of us. And we're going to get to
it is a hell of a good book, by the way. We played a little bit of it on the stream. We're going to play some more, I think, later this week. But yes, great book. Definitely gets the WYCD recommendation.
That in a moment, but I just wanted to start with a few items in the news this week. There were new revelations, Senator, this week about Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas and his financial relationship with billionaire Harlan Crow. And just this morning, there's even new reporting about some inaccuracies on his financial disclosure forms. Your colleague, Senator Sheldon Whitehouse, is calling on the Department of Justice to investigate Clarence Thomas for potential ethics violations. Do you back Senator Whitehouse's call?
Well, I think Senator Whitehouse is on the right track. The Supreme Court does not have to go along with the same type of ethics rules that members of Congress and other judges do. And it's time we ended that leniency for the Supreme Court. Some of what we're reading about in terms of Judge Thomas is really quite outrageous, and I think it needs to be investigated.
By the Department of Justice?
Yes, right.
And a number of colleagues of yours in the House and in the Senate, too, have said he should be impeached. Do you think that if wrongdoing is found, he should be impeached?
Well, I think the first thing you want to do before you impeach somebody is investigate the situation. And I think that is what the Department of Justice should be doing.
Someone who has spent a lot of time, really through her career, working on issues related to the judiciary is Senator Dianne Feinstein, one of your longtime colleagues. Representative Ro Khanna called for her to resign because her medical absence is keeping Democrats from confirming.
Couple of things we can learn from Brother Bernie right here. Why is he so liked? Do you remember that Michigan map I showed you where all of the independents preferred Bernie Sanders to Hillary Clinton? Why was that? Do you think all of those independents followed policy so much? No, it's because he gives straight answers. He doesn't need to dance around. He doesn't have a specific phrase that he uses when he means one thing so that he can communicate to the people who are in the know but not the other. No, he gives straight answers. There is power in that. If you're an honest person, if you have honest beliefs, you should be able to explain them relatively simply. Now, he does qualify some things. He's still a politician, and a politician often has to be careful about their language so they don't accidentally overpromise or imply that they're going to do something that they don't mean. But he does it simply. He does it straightforward. And what the hell? I like him so much. I'm going to give him a wicked-centric compliment. It's a hell of a tie. All right, here we go.
Judges, no doubt a big priority for all of you. But do you think she should resign?
Well, I have not talked to Senator Feinstein in several weeks. My hope is that she will be back as soon as possible. The decision about whether somebody should resign rests on that individual themselves. I don't think she should be forced out. I think she should take into consideration her health situation and when she's going to be back.
You're the chairman of the Senate Health Committee. It's a lot going on with that committee right now, which has oversight over the FDA. And right now, approval for the abortion pill could be revoked. It's really hanging in the balance. Should courts have the ability to rule to take a drug away from millions of people, like this, but also others?
Look, this is a continuation of a fundamental attack on women's rights. It is beyond comprehension that in the year 2023, you have people who think that it should not be women who control their own bodies, but government. And this is just another example of that. And we have got to fight as hard as we can to make sure that women are the people who determine their lives and not somebody, some right-wing politician.
Yes, sir.
You wrote in an op-ed back in October, Senator Sanders, last year, that Democrats shouldn't focus only on abortion in the midterms. That's a mistake. It proved to be quite a winning issue. In fact, the level of backlash to Dobbs really even surprised me, and I've been at this a while, too.
I really like this segment. We're going to keep Bernie there because you can see how he's going to address this question. It's so good. She's putting words in the man's mouth. Look at how he handles it. It's exactly what I want to see.
Did you underestimate the power of this issue and the power it had in motivating voters?
No, Jen, what I said is that abortion should be front and center. The right of women to control their own lives is a fundamental issue, but it cannot be the only issue. And if you recall, during the 2020 campaign, at the end of the campaign, people started talking about workers' rights. People started talking about Social Security and preserving Medicare and health care. So, no, I don't think I was wrong. Bottom line is, of course, we have to continue the fight for women's rights and abortion rights. But you cannot ignore the reality that 60% of the workers in this country are living paycheck to paycheck. We have massive income and wealth inequality. People can't afford child care. They can't afford health care. And they are struggling. You cannot ignore those issues.
Okay. So what we have right now, we have traditional corporate media doing what it always does, which is try to make the lefty seem like they're a bad strategist. And we have Bernie setting her straight. Good. This is somebody, and I don't honestly think this was a calculation that she made. I don't think she sat down and thought, "Oh, I'm gonna get Bernie." No. I don't think it's as dramatic as all of that. I think she's surrounded by wealthy broadcasters. Before that, she was surrounded by the most powerful politicians in the country. And I think she views things from a perspective of what's the way to trick the American voters best into voting for us. That's how she views things. Whereas Bernie, he's talking about serious issues. He's talking about campaigning not just on one issue, not just being showy about one issue, but laying out a vision for the country. In other words, he's serious about the job. On a side note, I think we should strongly consider putting in rules for people that have worked in government that prevents them from getting other jobs within a certain amount of time of being in government. I don't like that we have Claire McCaskill on MSNBC. I damn sure don't like the former press secretary for a president having a show. I want them thinking only about the job that they're doing and not the job they might be getting if they make certain people pleased with them. That is how you get corruption. Don't like it. Let's consider laws that change it.
All of them are important, is what you're saying. You need to focus on all of them. We just got new details, Senator, about another mass shooting. This one overnight in Alabama at a teenager's birthday party. A lot of details are still coming out. You yourself, I think, and you've talked about this a fair amount, have evolved on the issues of guns. You voted against a bill in 1993 that established national background checks and for a bill in 2005 that protected gun companies from lawsuits. You've been very pro-gun safety and all of the measures in recent years. As gun reform advocates are looking to try to move people to actually do something, what can they learn from you about your own evolution on this issue, about how to approach it?
Well, let's be clear, Jen. Let us be clear. 1988, when I ran for Congress the first time, I supported a ban on assault weapons. All right. And I come from a rural state. A lot of people are hunters here and do target practice, etc. But where we are right now, what the world has seen horrifically, unspeakably, in the last 20 plus years are these terrible, terrible mass shootings in schools and elsewhere. And the very good news is that ordinary Americans in large numbers understand that we need at least common sense gun safety legislation. That means people who should not own guns for a variety of reasons based on their background must not have that. We need universal background checks, in my view.
Like, for example, somebody that's willing to shoot a 16-year-old kid for the crime of having knocked on a door or rang a doorbell. That sort of person shouldn't have a gun. Wholeheartedly agreed. Want to address one comment. Patrick Thibodeau says, I wish Bernie was 15 years younger. For that matter, I wish I was 15 years younger. Yeah, I feel you, brother. Getting up in the morning sometimes. There's cricks where I don't even know where they come from. But I want to point something out here. We can all be, most of us are 15 years younger than Bernie. On average, we can all be Bernie Sanders. We can be a local Bernie Sanders. Listen to how he answers questions. He just corrected Jen Psaki there. And he didn't do it with some clever speaking trick. He doesn't have a secret book. He just corrected the record. He did it with regular language. If you are approaching government honestly, you will find, and I'm talking get on your local school board, get on to your town's city council or your town's council. Wherever you live, get into local politics. Hey, you'll get a nice little bonus. You're like, what is it, like $1,000 in the average town? That's what they pay people on their council. Like $1,500 a year. Okay, nice. That's a nice little thing. In exchange for that, you attend 12 or so meetings, and you vote on behalf of the people around you. And when they ask you to explain why you voted this way or that, the secret to being able to answer that question easily is don't take bribes, don't do things for nefarious reasons. Try to look out for people's best interests and explain why you thought that was in people's best interests. Be a local Bernie. You can do it.
For last 20 plus years, I think that when you're looking at these automatic weapons that are designed to kill people rapidly, these are military weapons. These are not weapons that should be in our civil society.
Former President Trump has appealed to working class voters, as have you over the course of your career quite a bit. And in a recent CNN poll,
Jen, I don't appeal to working class voters. I appeal to voters in general. And all of these
you certainly do. You certainly do, Senator. I have a point here. Let me get to it. In a recent CNN poll, 58% of Republicans without a four-year college degree said nominating Trump again would give the party its best chance of winning in 2024. And you have warned about not focusing on issues that are important to a range of workers, Americans in the working class. Are Democrats underestimating Trump? Is that something you're concerned about as you're watching?
Of course they're underestimating Trump. But the issue that we should ask ourselves is how does it happen when you have a pathological liar who is a billionaire who could care less about working class people ends up with so much working class support? And the reason is that that is that for too many years, the Democratic leadership has turned its back on working people. So you have today a minimum wage which remains at $7.25 an hour. That makes sense? You are the only major country on earth that doesn't guarantee health care to all people as a human right. Talking to you 50 miles away from the Canadian border. They spend 1/2 as much as we do per capita. You guarantee health care to all people. We pay the highest prices in the world for prescription drugs. We have corporations who...
Just to be clear, because I got to deal with this all the time. I catch heat for this constantly. They pay half as much as we do, and they don't have to worry about whether or not they can pay for a doctor's visit when they go there. Let me just say it again. Third time, because you need to grasp this. Canadians pay half as much as we do. And they have infinite free health care if that's what they end up needing. We could have the same system. We could all decide literally next year to have the same system by voting as far left as you can in the primaries and then going all blue in the general. And we could have that system. Mull that one over.
Making it harder for workers to join unions. We have a child care system, which is a total disaster. Do you think we're paying attention to the needs of the working class in this country? Billionaires are doing phenomenally well. It's time we stood up with work for working people and fought for a government and a society that work for all of us. And when you do that, I think people will see the fraudulent nature of somebody like Donald Trump.
Stick on this for a moment. Maybe not that particular tongue. I'll smack the old lips as well. Somebody said, let's jump back up here. Let me get this correct comment now. All right. Well, I'm gonna skip the specific comment because I failed to highlight it. That's my bad. But look, somebody was mentioning that Jen Psaki is essentially speaking with the voice of corporations now, or corporate Democrats, something along those lines. And yeah, I agree. And let's really focus on what they just discussed. In fact, I like the way that looked. So let's we're going to set up a little talking spot. Yeah. Okay. So Jen Psaki's framing of that question would have led you to believe that the clever political strategist thing to do would be to adopt some of Trump's talking points. How do we appeal to the working class Americans? We're underestimating Trump. What we have to do is be just a little bit racist. What we have to do is really demonize some of the same people. Otherwise, well, we're not going to appeal to those working class. It's nonsense, of course. It shows the utter misunderstanding of what is going on. I realize she didn't say to do those exact things. I'm putting words in her mouth. But the question is framed to lead somebody down that path. We're underestimating Trump, so should we be more Trump-like? Whereas Bernie is actually seriously answering the question. Focus on issues that appeal to working class Americans. In other words, and let me de-clown the explanation I gave of Jen Psaki's question. She's saying should we make more appeals to working class Americans? Because Trump appeals to working class Americans, even though he doesn't do anything for them. And Bernie's counter to that is to say, yeah, we should appeal to working class Americans by doing things for working class Americans. We should appeal, in other words, like Democrats, to working class Americans. In other words, actually get things done for them so that we can have something to talk about, to say that we are doing for them. What Jen Psaki would have you believe, based on her little framing there, is that the way to get working class Americans on your side is to do performative nonsense. In other words, the Democrat specialty. And I will tell you now, in 2023, going into the summer of, and then eyeball in 2024, you're going to see tons of corporate Democrats with cowboy hats on, visiting factories, assembly lines, and not talking about raising the minimum wage, not talking about giving everybody health care, but talking about how, I grew up in a town a whole lot like this, and we're going to give a massive tax break to bring a big old business into town and give you even more jobs. That's not going to appeal to working class Americans. Saying, we're going to give you the opportunity to work harder. We're going to give you more of an opportunity to participate in this system, which will not allow you to retire. That's not going to appeal to anyone. But Bernie's might.
President Biden said this week he plans to run for re-election, but he is not yet prepared to announce. You have said you're going to support President Biden, but are there places, and maybe you touched on some of them just now, where you've been frustrated that his administration hasn't gone far enough at this point?
Of course they have. Look, you tell me, let the American people decide why in some cases we're paying 10 times more for prescription drugs as do the people of other nations. Why? And that has to do with the power of the pharmaceutical industry, the fact that they have 1,700 paid lobbyists in Washington, D.C. Has the president been strong enough in telling the drug companies, sorry, stop ripping off the American people while you're enjoying record-breaking profits? No, he has not. We need to raise the minimum wage, in my view, to at least $17 an hour so that working people, low-income people, get a fair shake. Have we heard enough about that? No, we have not. We need, as I mentioned earlier, to make sure that not only do we protect Social Security from the cuts the Republicans wanted, we have to expand it. Half of the elderly people in this country have nothing in the bank as they face retirement. I haven't heard the president talking about that as much as he should. And bottom line, and this is what the book was about that you mentioned earlier, we are moving toward an oligarchic form of society. And I know that that is not comfortable for people to hear, but it's important that we discuss this issue. We have more income and wealth inequality today than we've ever had. We have more concentration of ownership than we have ever had. We have a corrupt political system which allows billionaires through super PACs to buy elections. Those are some of the issues we need to discuss on corporate media. We need to discuss in the United States Congress.
The title of your book, It's Okay to Be Angry About Capitalism, really did sit with me. It is a memorable book title, Senator. Of all the things voters are angry about, and there are many, abortion, the lack of progress on gun reform, even Clarence Thomas's questionable relationship with a billionaire. I know how you feel about billionaires. Why should capitalism be at the top of that list? Why was that important to be in the title of that book?
Jen, what's important? Abortion is a huge issue. Social justice is a huge issue. But, you know, sometimes the corporate media forgets about it and Congress forgets about it. You and I are chatting today. Do you know that there are tens and tens of millions of Americans who cannot afford health care, who are scared to death that if their kid or their parent gets sick, they don't know what's going to happen? There are people working for starvation wages. There are moms who can't afford to send their kids to decent childcare, can't even find a slot. Those are issues of enormous consequence we don't talk about. Boom. Now, you tell me, you got three people on top today who own more wealth than the bottom half of American society. Is that an issue we should be talking about? Does that sound like we have an economy that works for all of us or just the few? Is that an issue worth discussing?
We're talking about it now, Senator, so I'm happy to have you on. I wanted to ask you about I did want to ask you, sir, about President Biden's nomination of Julie Su.
The link to the full clip is, of course, in the description. You can check it out if you want. But Bernie just knocked it out of the park with those answers, and I think with laying out how the political class should be addressing the issues of working folks and should be handling, frankly, if you're on the left, all of these interviews. Just tell it like it is. Don't be afraid of it. We're going to end this segment, but then I want to tell you, first of all, what can you do? Vote in primaries. And vote, in my opinion, as far left as you can. But no matter where you fall on the spectrum, get your voice heard. They are there for a reason. Make sure that the person running has the beliefs that you do, or as close to them as you can get. And now we're going to go to the first ever call-in segment of the show. It is my great pleasure to introduce to the program Mr. Patrick Thibodeau. Hello, sir.
Glad to be on the maiden voyage with you.
Well, delighted to have you. What we're doing this time is the incredibly advanced system of using cell phones.
Yeah, you calling me and me answering the phone. What a novel concept.
Right?
Yeah.
So, what'd you have to talk about today? What are you thinking?
Well, so I figured I would be your first on this, and so I wanted to share some technical things.
Ooh, okay.
First off, I'm hearing you a good 10 seconds ahead of what I'm seeing on my monitor.
Yeah, that checks out.
Pretty common for talk shows, I know. So I'll try not to get distracted by watching the reactive what I said 10 seconds ago.
Okay. But
no, I just kind of wanted to be the first, like we did with the user content, and see what it sounds like and looks like. It's remarkably easy. I hear Pacman do Discord calls all the time, and it can be terribly frustrating, the connections and stuff.
You know, I'm trying to take advantage of the fact that this is relatively speaking, a new show, which means we have a niche enough audience that I can get away with just straight up doing this.
Right, well, so far, so good.
Yeah. We're definitely going to have fun with it. The folks over at Eager Beaver have such a clean setup. Oh, my God. It put me to shame. Literally, they just share a link and you're there.
How do I sound? Because I'm on like really expensive new earbuds that I just bought.
Honest to God, they sound great. I guess we don't have majority report rules here. Bluetooth is working just fine.
Good to know.
All right, let me get you're in Texas, right?
Yes, sir.
All right. Give me the overview here. First of all, are you in a big town, little town?
I'm in Austin.
Austin. Okay, so you're keeping it weird.
Little big town. Well, I've always been a little weird, but I've lived here. I'm 54. I've lived here for 32 years now. So.
Oh, nice. So what the political scene there? How informed would you say the average voter is?
I would say the average voter is liberal by default.
Really?
Now, when you go to vote, I see people taking it very seriously. They hold their little cards in their hands and run down issue by issue, candidate by candidate. It's frustrating if you're waiting in line behind them, but I totally support that. I want everybody, nothing is more important to a democracy than an informed electorate, right?
Absolutely. Yes, sir.
Yeah. So now, at the same time, there's a truck in my neighborhood that has a big sticker that says F Joe and the O on the back window.
Oh, boy.
It's broad as daylight. And so that's a guy you don't want to talk to right off the bat. I don't know who he thinks he's winning over driving that truck around. And I remember not my president stickers when Obama was there. So,
Of course.
It's Texas. It's still, and there's, rural parts of Austin. So it's a decent mix. And, Austin's a blue dot in a red state. So it's generally liberal. And I think obviously it's a college town, a lot of younger people. And I think younger people are trying to be more informed. I'm not sure how well that's working out, but, I'm here to support them.
Do you find that the average Texan, so I'm not talking about just Austin necessarily, but the average Texan likes Greg Abbott, doesn't like him? What are the thoughts on Greg Abbott?
I don't know anyone who likes Greg Abbott.
Really?
There are MAGA signs in my neighborhood, mothers against Greg Abbott. They're all over the place.
Wow.
Women especially hate Greg Abbott. I don't know anyone, and I don't know Republicans. Sure, if you said who are you going to vote for, they'd say the Republican, but if it wasn't Greg Abbott, they wouldn't care. They would vote for, a cereal box or whatever. I mean, they'll vote for Dan Patrick. That guy's another tool. I'm trying to keep it clean because of your earlier...
Oh, I screwed that. I've screwed this stream up so thoroughly at this point.
I love the passion, brother. I love it. I work a 9 to 5. I'm a corporate slave. I have to be on my best behavior all day, but deep down inside, I have the mouth of a teamster. And can't wait to use it.
Oh, well, I deeply, deeply appreciate, first of all, your patronage, just showing up these streams, saying hello, and giving your opinion. And I definitely appreciate you being the first ever call-in on WYCD Wicked.
I'm telling everybody who'll listen to come. I'm on a couple. I'm not social media. I'm not on Facebook or anything, but I do a couple of liberal chat sites. I let them know about you.
Hell
I also
yeah.
moderate a death penalty website, which is interesting, which I have invited those people to come to Peace Talks on Friday. I don't know if any of them have made it yet, although that might be a couple of them that we've seen in here tonight. They sound like that.
Well, hell yeah. That's how this is going to grow. That is how this channel, this group of people is going to get stronger, is just telling people about it.
I agree, 100%. I'm here for you. We've got Tech Drop and Stars and Minnesota, so
Oh.
I'll watch some and then hopefully we'll get some more followers.
Well, hell yeah. Brother, I appreciate it. I'm going to end our inaugural call because I don't want to push my luck, but we're going to keep this, we're going to try to do this every day, and we're going to try to make it more and more convenient. Thanks for bearing with us at the start.
Yes, call in members, call in people. Jake's a good dude, and this technology clearly works.
Thank you, brother. We made it happen. My word. That was Patrick Thibodeau. I was delighted to have him as our first ever call-in guest. Well, as I said, I don't want to push my luck. This has gone all right. I only ruined one segment by flying off the handle. So, if you did enjoy this stream, consider liking, consider subscribing. We do like having as hearty a group as we can get together working on issues that we all care about. This has been WYCD Wicked. That stands for What You Can Do. My name's Jake. What's that? What's this? Do I hear encore? Well, I could not. But I'd have to get a whole video ready. I'd have to... Oh, what the heck. Let's do it. All right, we got one more for you then. Since we got a call for an encore, I guess I should... make that happen. What do you say? As it happens, Franny P. herself suggested we watch something from Midas Touch. That's Texas Paul. I have not seen this video before, but it's in the chamber here because it's such an interesting hook. Apparently, there was a secret recording. What the hell? Let's do it. But I'm going to record this puppy. So here's a viewer suggestion. This comes from Franny P. Franny, thank you. This is Midas Touch, and specifically it's Texas Paul, who came across a secret recording that he says really exposes GOP operatives and what they're all about. I think we should have a look at that. So let's do it.
Let's talk about Bud Light outrage. I want you to take a look at this video, folks. It doesn't pertain to Bud Light, but it's a video I've been tagged in a lot, and it's the same thing. I want you to, it's all part of this, and you need to stick with me to the end, folks. This is good. Take a look at this clip.
For the past few weeks, I've been helping you know your enemy. And recently, I spoke to you about the Heritage Foundation. An activist group recently managed to infiltrate one of Heritage Foundation's secret conferences and listen to what they had to say.
$24 million investment over the next 2 years. We've already started. We're working with these state legislators to make sure they have all of the information they need to draft the bills. In some cases, we actually draft them for them, or we have a sentinel on our behalf.
Oh, mercy. Let's not only... Hold up, let me get in chat. Okay. Let's not only pay attention to what these folks are doing, but let's take notes. Okay. They draft the bills for their representatives. Let's find somebody in the wicked community who knows how to draft a bill. Because I bet we've got some ideas worth making these punks do for
Give them the model legislation so it has that grassroots, from the bottom up type of vibe. Iowa was the first state that we...
Type of vibe. Oh, my God. This is what AstroTurf looks like, folks.
got to work it, and we did it quickly, and we did it quietly. Governor Reynolds signed the bill on March 8th. Little fanfare. Honestly, nobody even noticed. My team looked at it and were like, it can't be that easy.
Nobody even noticed that this group is the one working behind the scenes to not only introduce legislation that is hateful and anti-LGBT and anti-BIPOC, but sometimes they draft the bills themselves, and they pride themselves on being able to do it behind the scenes in secret.
I mean, I knew they behaved like this, but I didn't think they were out there bragging about it. Oh my God, good find, Franny P. Jesus.
We've also hired state lobbyists to make sure that in these targeted states, we're meeting with the right people. I was able to sit down with Governor Kemp 3 days before he signed the election package in Georgia, and I had one message for him. Do not wait to sign that bill. If you wait even an hour, you will look weak.
They spend millions of dollars hiring top attorneys to research and find loopholes to pass these hateful bills. And then they pressure the legislators to pass it.
Is key. It's the bedrock of this entire comprehensive plan. If we didn't have the best legal minds and election law experts around this, we wouldn't be able to give that advice and counsel to state legislators. We wouldn't be able to help them draft their bills. We wouldn't be able to give the ammo to activists to get that echo chamber and wrap around these members. So it's key. It's the foundation.
God damn. Look, if you want to know why I say we should generally be polite, I mean, we can disagree. In fact, we should disagree, but we should be polite to visitors. I don't want to be the right-wing version of that. I don't want to be the left-wing version of that. I don't want that at all. I want us to be the left-wing antidote to that, but not their bright reflection. In other words, we should take steps to make sure this doesn't become an echo chamber. And it's also, by the way, why I truly love having folks disagree with me in the comments or hold me to a higher standard. Because, Jesus Christ, they're just talking about the right-wing echo chamber now openly. Like, yes, this is good. We want to grab a hold of that echo chamber. We really want these sheep to all follow into this here slaughterhouse. Jesus Christ.
Foundation of their organization is lobbying the government by financing their campaigns to pass the bills that they write. And they admit that if Democrats were not in the White House, that they would get away with a lot more. Listen to this.
I've honed in on these 8 specific focus states because they are
Let's be crystal clear. I see one of those states, and I'll tell you, it is not a battleground state. One of those states, which consists of 2 peninsulas, was a gerrymandered state, but it ain't a battleground state. And I ain't going to let some lady serving the devil here get away with calling Michigan a battleground state. For that matter, I'm not entirely sure that Wisconsin is. But let's let her finish her just absolutely sinister piece here. I can't do, in fact, a better job of telling right-wingers why they shouldn't vote for the right wing anymore than this fucking sinister lady is doing.
battleground states. They're politically significant. And if maybe 2, maybe 3 of these 8 states went a different way.
Ooh, but I do love that she's calling Texas a battleground state. And I'll happily take up that battle. And as we just heard from Patrick Thibodeau, there's lefties in Texas.
November, we would be having a different conversation here.
The Heritage Foundation is a white supremacist Christian nationalist organization with a goal of overthrowing the U.S. government. And yet, as they admit here, they are behind a lot of the laws that are being brought forth in our country. This is a hostile takeover by an outside organization that seeks to dismantle the United States. And you need to know your enemy.
So, yeah, she's talking about the Heritage Foundation, and you know, people feel like this is a real gotcha. What this is the Heritage Foundation. This is their portrayal to potential donors. This is a sales pitch. That's why they're portraying themselves as this super secret ninja spy organization. Folks, the Heritage Foundation has been lobbyists for decades. They've been writing legislation for decades. They have. This is not new. We've known this forever. Yeah, I mean, I'm glad this video is getting out and people are actually seeing how the right wing works. I mean, that's fantastic. But this whole AstroTurf thing, well, yeah, that's all the Republicans have left. I mean, that is literally all they are, is an AstroTurf movement. We're going to get to Bud Light, but let's talk about CRT first. You know, I did a video about this. I talked about where all their misinformation about CRT came from. It's from an organization called the Manhattan Institute. And it's called the Manhattan Institute because it's in the middle of Manhattan. It's literally 1 block off of Madison Avenue, the big ad district. There's a reason for that location. It's at 42 Vanderbilt Way, literally 1 block off of Madison Avenue and all these ad agencies. And it's specifically located there for a reason.
Just chiming in to add on to what Texas Paul is saying here. First of all, thank you for reminding me that Texas Paul is part of Midas Touch and is a hell of a talent. I really like this guy. Second, that TikToker just earned another subscription. I'm going to have to sign up for TikTok, but by God, she's earned it. Third, well, I think what he's saying is true. On the whole, it's true. Basically, all they have left is these AstroTurf campaigns. Yeah. But what are they? Really? I mean, like, what's the purpose of them? Is it just to do evil? Well, it's to take a very, very small group of voters and get them riled up and get the things they want passed. So number one, it's to create the desire in the first place. AMI, for example, that's a larger group, but it's the same thing. It's a media organization, but it's the same thing. It exists to get that group of voters riled up about something. And then you have this lady from the Heritage Foundation laying out how they then get change done. And look, it's sinister change. It's awful change, but let's be like the Romans. Learn from those people that fought us the hardest. I don't like what they're trying to do. I don't agree with what they're trying to do. I don't even agree with all of their tactics on like an ethical level. But we can't deny the effectiveness of a lot of this. For a long time in the United States of America, a sliver of the population has dictated how the rest of us have to live. And they've been making the country more and more barbaric. They have been holding back progress, technological progress, social progress. They've been haunting us with the same problems for generations now. Can you imagine how effective those tactics will be? For example, writing the bill and handing it to a legislator. Can you imagine how powerful those tactics will be in the hands of a group that isn't a sliver of the voters, but is in fact the majority of voters? We just have to wake up and give a damn. We can. Let's let this man keep going.
They pump this nonsense out. And in their own words, their stated goal is to politicize everything. To politicize everything. And if you don't know what the Manhattan Institute is, Cliff Notes version is, it's an organization founded by our worst CIA director and a British oligarch that believed oligarchy was the best form of government. It's currently run by an oligarch by the name of Paul Singer. He's the chairman over there.
Neoliberalism. In other words, when he's saying a British oligarch, these are adherents of neoliberalism. It got this undemocratic way of viewing government got popularized after World War II by a survivor of World War II who saw the rise of Adolf Hitler and literally came to the conclusion that democracy isn't good. So what is neoliberalism? It is that person's conversion kit for democracy. If you're already afflicted with the dangerous democracy, this is how you make it irrelevant. Neoliberalism. Just giving you the Hartman historical context there.
They just want to pump out oligarchy. That's what they do. And they're doing it by propaganda. CRT being one of it. All of the misinformation you've heard come out of the right and all the misinformation the right believes about CRT came out of the Manhattan Institute. They wrote it all, disseminated it out to politicians, and the politicians and their contacts in social media pumped it out to their base. So now their base has no freaking clue. And they said themselves, they were stupid enough, one of their fellows was stupid enough to do an interview. They said it outright. They were very proud of it. They chose CRT for a reason, because you knew nothing about it. Their base knew nothing about it. It was, quote, the perfect villain. They could say anything about it they wanted. And you really got to at least admire their effectiveness. Because
when I say things like we should be willing to fight mean, this is what I'm talking about. Not fight unfair, but fight mean. This is the kind of stuff we should do. For example, they want to politicize everything. I don't think we should resist that, because they're going to be able to politicize to their folks as much as they want. We can use that to our advantage. Judo that shit. Let them choose to fight us on any battleground, because we'll win on any battleground. But we do need to be aware that the fight's going on. So they want to politicize anything, everything. Okay. Let's do the same. Every time somebody complains to you at work about how much the boss makes, mention politics. Every time somebody complains to you about not being able to pay for something, mention politics. When you go to the doctor and the doctor tells you that you have X option which costs Y, or you have Y option which costs, that was a poor example, or you have A option which costs B, whatever. Mention to your doctor politics. Be like, well, I'd love to do the thing that sounds better, but if you're genuinely not able to do it for financial reasons, say, but we live in a country where I can't do the best thing for my health. I have to do the most affordable thing for my health. And I hope, doctor, you'll remember that when you vote. Keep it going. Bring politics into everything. And if they want to throw in the towel, let them throw in the towel. We'll bring down the temperature after they do, and not before. These are villains, which means we will win these fights because we're right. It's that simple. The decent folks in the United States are right, and the monsters are monsters, and they can only exist in their echo chambers. We don't require an echo chamber, and we should work hard. We should acknowledge that we will constantly be in some form of one, but we should work hard to make sure that we are not, to try to not be. Because our ideas don't require isolation to exist. Theirs do.
I'll be honest with you. I had a conversation with a couple. I went on a cruise to the Bahamas, and I'm sitting there eating breakfast next to a couple having a nice conversation. A nice conversation. And then it eventually went from talking about medication and different things, to politics. And I didn't feel like, I'm on a cruise with a bunch of Trumpers, so I didn't feel like the bullshit. So I put out there immediately, look, when it comes to Democrats around here, I'm about the tallest hog at the trough. I am stone cold, hardcore, ride or die Democrat. Just so you know, coming out the gate. They were shocked. They were shocked. They were like, this guy that we're having a great conversation with is a Democrat? Yes, I'm a Democrat. Then they started asking me questions. CRT came up immediately. These folks believed in their heart of hearts CRT existed in all of our kids' schools, and Republicans saved the day and got it out. That's how this AstroTurf propaganda works. They find a subject, moving along to Bud Light, they find a subject that people really don't know anything about. I mean, let me be honest with you. What do you know about being trans? What do you know about trans people? I mean, as offensive as it is, the average person believes that trans people is just a super gay person that likes to play dress up. It's not. It's a physical state of being. But most people don't have any clue about that, and that's why it's a perfect target for Republicans. I mean, you wonder why all of this anti-trans stuff came out? I mean, really, it just like popped up overnight, just super trans hate. I mean, they've always been hateful towards the LGBTQ community, but it's been on steroids and focused almost specifically at the T in LGBTQIA community. Why? Because it's the perfect villain. You don't know anything about it, really. Their base doesn't know anything about it, really. They can say anything they want. That's why they say trans people are pedophiles. Trans people are grooming your kids. None of it's true. None of it's true.
Side note, he's made a fantastic point. I don't want to go too far away from it. But side note, that is also why you see all of these closeted Republican politicians. So you'll have supposedly straight Republican politicians get caught with a male prostitute in a bathroom somewhere. And it might make you think, oh my God, what's happening? Well, what's happening is that person's probably, I don't know, bisexual, maybe they're gay, who knows? But they grew up in a culture where those kinds of thoughts are shunned. You're not supposed to know about them. So they handle them badly when they have them. He's made a fantastic point, though, which is that what this relies upon is ignorance. It relies on ignorance to exist. They pick issues which people don't know that much about. And by the way, you will notice almost universally the response of the left is to first try to understand the thing and then look at the legislation around it. And the response of the right, as they are coached to do, and let's be clear, this is where the onus ceases to be on the voters and starts to be on the con artists. The response of the right is to, by default, say anything other than what I say I am shouldn't exist. Because that's how they're coached to handle it. Because it is framed to them as your existence versus this other group's existence. And they go out of their way to make sure these people forget that they're in America, which is supposed to be a place where people can do what they please. And it does not have to be any of your damn business.
But their base doesn't know, and they're told to be mad. Perfect example, this Bud Light thing. I challenge you to find a video where somebody's destroying their Bud Light that they have a can with Dylan Mulvaney's face on it. You won't find it. These people never saw these cans. And to be honest with you, had not some AstroTurf group, and we don't know which one was behind the Bud Light thing yet, but some sharp person on the left will find it. So, you know, somebody like an Aaron Rupar or somebody will dig in. They'll find the timestamps on all these releases. They'll find out who was spreading this out. And it's going to be an AstroTurf group that told right-wingers to be outraged. And what is so, I mean, you've just got this group, because every right-winger is mad.
Son of a gun, I can't resist a challenge. Your old pal Jake used to be something of a news hound. I'll bet you one membership. That is, if you're not a member and in your heart you're willing to take this bet, I'll bet you one membership that by tomorrow, that's right, by tomorrow at 8 p.m., I can find the group that AstroTurfed the anti-trans Bud Light wildness. If in your heart you just took that bet, if in your heart you just said bet, and I show up tomorrow with the membership, or excuse me, with the information, I want that membership. And if you just respect the game, consider it anyway. Start the clock, 24 hours. I'm going to get this information for you.
Because we're pushing this in their face. They don't want to see it. They would have never seen a Dylan Mulvaney can. In fact, they would have never known Bud Light was sponsoring Dylan Mulvaney. They wouldn't have. None of those videos would have ever entered their orbit. Ever. If a right-wing group had not picked it up and intentionally blasted it into their orbit. And then they became outraged and started blasting it all over the place. So get this. They're outraged that this is in their face when they are the only people putting this in their face. And you know that's true because they're all like, well, I'm drinking Coors Light now. Well, Coors Light had the same exact sponsorship. Why do you think Bud did it? Because they didn't want to seed the LGBTQ market to Coors alone. Yeah. They know nothing about this. But they're outraged. Skeeters are out. But they're outraged. Outraged by their own behavior of putting this all in their face. Kid Rock shooting cans of beer. You know, that's either A, an attempt at relevancy again, or B, somebody paid him to do it.
On behalf of Michigan, I just want to apologize for letting this son of a car dealership owner become famous. I was a big part of that. I bought basically all of his albums when I was in middle school, and I stopped around all summer long, which was just the right time to get off that train. Kid Rock is scum.
You know, it's just one of those two things. You know, it's the same AstroTurf nonsense. We didn't put that in their face. Hell, most of us didn't even know it happened. Most people didn't even know who Dylan Mulvaney was. On the left, much less the right.
Yeah, I did not know.
And fortunately, nobody took the rope-a-dope. Nobody came rushing to Bud Light's aid and yada, yada, yada. So it's just so painfully obvious that it's in only their orbit because it's only in their orbit. Nobody took the bait. Nobody jumped into a fight that wasn't a fight. Which I have to commend you folks. There aren't pictures of people down in Bud Light and shit like that. You know, I mean, it's just right-wingers being outraged by information put in their face by right-wingers. You gotta love it, folks. That's all Republicans are. They do not govern. I mean, look at the idiocy of the budget proposal they put forward, slashing all spending by 25%. Yeah.
I gotta say, great suggestion. Great suggestion. I'm going to throw this out there, and hey, Wicked community, let me know what you think. I don't know how I feel about the not taking the bait. I think if you had every single time there was an anti-whatever panic, if there was a massive whiplash the other way, it might encourage companies to yada, 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 yada. But I'll tell you, I lean towards the lazy. And if it's a might do something, then I think the better thing to do is chill out and just let these people make asses of themselves until somebody makes a really good argument for going the other way. Overall, though, yes, it's so clear that these campaigns are AstroTurf. It's so clear that right-wing politicians have no interest whatsoever in doing anything of use. And I think that the what you can do isn't even something I got to look up and do a whole segment for it. This is easy. Share that video from Texas Paul. Share videos. If you got Bo of the Fifth Column, you got Texas Paul, you have people with an aesthetic that is going to be appealing to people on the right who are talking sense and coming out the gate showing what AstroTurf they are dealing with on the right. That can only be helpful. So share that clip around. Link's in the description. Okay, link's not in the live video description, but link will be in the description of the VOD upload. Wonderful video, and thank you, Franny P, for the recommendation. Franny's the man, I'm telling you. All right, folks, now for real, it's the end of the show. Thank you so much for joining me. This has been the moment before I read. Haha, just kidding, psyching you out. Mars Falcon says, here comes the Patrick's Time vomit launch of, yeah. Look, hey, Patrick's Time is our resident right-winger. It is useful to know what the other side is thinking. Machine Man says, listen to how vague everything is. His worldview revolves around not knowing how anything actually works and just vaguely gesturing at capitalism as if it will fix it. It will is the thing, though. If you don't like, it sounds like you're one of those folks that thinks George Soros is the devil. If you don't like him interfering with your politics, yeah, capitalism is the problem. Let me put it to you this way. Let's go forget for a second all the individual names and just look at the concepts we're dealing with. We are, every day in the world, we are inventing technology which makes work easier. What work needs to get done? We need food, we need shelter, we need electricity. Now we need an internet connection, so we need lines of communication, be they telephone, etc. That work gets easier to do every day. What happens when that work is literally effortless to do? When you got a farm that can harvest 30, 40, 50, 100, 1,000 times the amount of crops it used to because you're not having one person with a basket filling it up one handful at a time like we did 1,000 years ago, but you have a machine which can harvest so much at a time. What happens when the work becomes effortless? What do? If we're still deciding things by how much pay you got for doing your labor, you're going to suddenly have the one rich person that owns the machine that harvests all that stuff and a bunch of people who have to beg them to let them have just an ear of corn to survive. That's what happens if you don't adjust as time goes on. If you don't, for example, lower the age of Social Security. That's what happens. If you keep letting the person that owns the machine get all the money, then that person becomes rich. Their kid's going to want to start out in the world. They'll get a giant loan from dad, buy a bunch of machines, and so on and so forth. And we will have a class of people who are simply more powerful than everybody else. That's a bad way to approach the future. Capitalism is indeed the problem. If you want specifics, ask me a specific question. I'll give you a specific answer. But when you're talking broad strokes, yes, that is the issue. It's a fair criticism, though. Mars Falcon, I find it fascinating that host cannot read a true post from me out of fear of upsetting the racist claims Chicago has a overrun by savages problem. I find that weak. I'll read if you're talking about me, I'll read it. For sure, whatever the quote is. Oh, I see Leon Chevalier got there. Good to see you, my friend. And Catherine Wolf as well. Good to see everybody. This was a fun show, I got to say. Leon Chevalier says, if everybody paid 15 to 20% taxes, we'd all have an amazing life. Oh, my God. Yes, we could. If billionaires just had to pay in terms of taxes, a percentage of the money they make that is equal to what the rest of us have to pay, yeah, I mean, healthcare would be free. We'd have a retirement age of 50 instead of whenever that 65 is it now. Yeah, we'd be living it, man. We'd be living high and happy. Y'all are too much fun. All right, I'm outskis. I'll see you tomorrow. It's at 8 o'clock every weekday, 9 o'clock on the weekends. This has been WYCD Wicked. We'll see you next time, folks.